Let's move on to something that's very important and very annoying, but you know this very well in depth, is Elon's pay package with this, activist that's dressing like a judge. But what's going on? Like we've already got the
In a
votes.
Halloween costume.
Halloween costume.
Oh my God. How to make
Amazing.
friends, right? How to make friends.
It's amazing. It's
Yeah.
amazing. But we've got the votes. We've got a president who is pro Elon. We've got an administration that loves Elon. What is she doing? Like, why is she still stalling? Like, what's happening?
Well, well, she's not in charge of that case anymore. So that's the good thing. Let me just
But
address first the political thing. I think it was
okay.
really important for Elon to be with President Trump through this initial election cycle. I think it was important because he felt that the woke movement here in America had gone by far too far, and he had voted Democrat in the past, exclusively Democrat in the past,
Yep.
and he felt that President Trump had a larger calling after that assassination attempt. So he poured money in it, but even more, he poured time in it, which was always, painful for us Tesla investors because he's ours, right? We're not giving him away like that, but yet we did. It was important. I think Dodge was important, but he also, because that's Elon, learned very quickly that politics is a dirty game, and it's one where you don't win just by logic and hard work. There is just so much happening. So he has stepped back from it. He was really actively involved from end of January to end of April. So 3 months.
Yeah.
We've heard about it as if it was 5 years. No, it was 3 months only. I still think he's going to support the Republicans because, that's where he is now, and that's where he thinks he has the most influence. But what he has won is that President Trump considers him as his spiritual son now, and that we have the Minister of Transportation, Duffy, who is clearly in favor now for a national solution in the United States of full self-drive. These are two major things that change because
massive.
under President Biden, the whole union cabal history, there was just no way of making any substantial progress with that administration. You always had this sword of Damocles on your head of what are they coming up next to make it more difficult for Tesla and for Elon. So that is a good thing, and that is behind us. But that has nothing to do with Delaware, because the way America is with the 50 states is that that's just the way it is. And business incorporation is not on a federal level, it is on a state level. So when Tesla incorporated in 2006, if I remember right, it incorporated in Delaware. When it IPO'd, it was still a Delaware company. And until last year, it was still a Delaware company. And last year in the shareholder vote, thank heavens, we got enough votes to finally move out of Delaware. And then there was a law case brought forward by Tesla shareholder, if I recall his name right, it was Donald Ball. He had 28,000 shares, and he said that vote last year, we won it by, I think it was 63%, and it should have been won by 66.6%, so it's not valid. So there was always this doubtfulness of, are we still in Delaware, or did we really move to Texas? And then we had 2-3 months ago the judgment by Kathleen McCormick, the chancellor, thing saying, no, the 63% were enough, we're gone. Okay, so as of the 14th of June 2024, we are a Texas incorporated company. But there are still 2 cases in the appeals court, the Supreme Court of Delaware, and there are still 2.5 cases in the Chancery Court in Delaware. Those are cases that were filed prior to the 14th of June. Also do remark, no case was filed, at least not to my knowledge, in the last year. Since we're in Texas, nobody files anymore. Why is that? First of all, in Texas, the attorney fees are much lower. In Delaware, you can get astronomical amounts. We're getting to that in a second. Second, the way Texas is judging in business cases is much more pro-friendly to founders and owners. Now
As
they
it
just
should.
passed a law, as it should, exactly. And as a
Yeah.
shareholder, you wish, because now we just lost
Yeah.
6 years of our lives thinking about Tornetta, a guy with 9 shares, right? And whatever. So I'm getting there in a second. Exactly. And so the whole quintessence of all that is, for the future, we're in Texas, and I think we're relatively safe there. Texas has made it possible now, a new law, that only shareholders who group together and have at least 3% of shares, that would be in Tesla's case 100 million shares, meaning really huge amounts, before you can sue. So 9 shares won't make it able to sue anymore. So between that and the limited attorney fees, believe me, they're much less motivated to go after after Tesla, because maybe the comma was not at the right place at the right page on whatever, right? Crazy stuff. So let's get back to the pay package. So the pay package was brought forward in 2018 by Tornetta to the Chancery Court in Delaware, and finally last year we had 2 verdicts. We had a preliminary verdict in January where Chancellor McCormick said, no, the richest man in the world doesn't need more money. And then in December, attributed the attorney fees of $345 million to the attorneys of Mr. Tornetta. In those cases, just for those who are less knowledgeable about that, Mr. Tornetta himself, he'll get $10,000 or $20,000 out of this, right? The attorneys will kick him down a little check. Most of the money goes to the attorneys, right? This is it's not Tornetta that's getting rich of that. Not that I'm crying for him, certainly not. But it's it's not him going for personal enrichment here. So Tesla appealed that case. So that case is one of the 2 cases that is now in the appeals court. It appealed because also last year in June we voted again and again in large majority that we want Elon to have that 2018 share package exactly how we voted it in 2018. We don't want to change anything. First of all, why?
I gotta say thank you to you for really pushing that. Like I remember you were just like, I have to give my applause to you for that. Yeah, that was
no doubt about it.
I have to say thanks to you for that. Yeah.
Thank you. And I mean, actually the byproduct of it was that since everybody voted, everybody also voted for Texas, which in the end is much more important. So we actually got both of those, which hallelujah again.
Yes.
So all that to say, the appeal has been filed. There have been some amicus briefs, including one of some shareholders, including me, of professors and whatever. So really good stuff. The opposing lawyers obviously still say that they deserve the $345 million. And there's going to be hearing in August, and there's going to be a verdict by November, December. Okay, so that will conclude that. So there are now 2 possibilities. Either this stands, there's 3 possibilities, sorry. Either this stands, then everything is good, because the $2 billion that have been budgeted for us, because that's how much it cost us initially, because the share price was so much lower. It's been all budgeted up to 2022, so it's all good. And Elon gets his shares. Nobody has to pay anything other than Elon at one point, some taxes, everything is good. It does not stand. Then for us to reinstate exactly the same, instead of costing the $2 billion it already cost us, which would come back to us, it would cost us now about $80 billion to put the same thing in place. So it's completely crazy. We're moving from something that we've already paid and cost us $2 billion to doing exactly the same thing for Elon having, and it's not even exactly the same because he actually would have to pay more taxes on it, but that's another story. But it would cost us 40 times more, right? And she's claiming that she actually did something good for the shareholders. Completely crazy. And then there's this third solution, because you could also just say, okay, got it, we lost. We're not going to give him the same, but we're going to give him something else that gives him what he wants. And so that would now be something new under Texas law. And so that thing could be multiple things. It could be Class B shares, because at the moment there are only common shares for Tesla, only one group of shares where everybody has the same voting power. Now, many companies, Oracle, Meta, Google, have Class B shares where they give certain executives and founders certain shares that have higher voting power, 2 times, 5 times, 10 times more voting power than the common shares. And that is, I think, what Elon wants. And that is what I think personally should be done. And that is possible under Tesla law. Wasn't possible under Delaware law anymore because we IPO'd with only one class of share. So if that happens, that'll be good. But for it to happen, we need a 66.6% vote on that in the next shareholder meeting, which is going to come up in the next 2-3 months. So I think they're currently discussing with institutional shareholders, because institutions have now about 57% of the float that's going to vote on that. So we would have to see how they feel about it, because if Elon gets more voting power, they obviously, and us retail shareholders, get less, right? There's always a balance in all this. So that could be one solution. Another solution people bringing up, I'm less knowledgeable about all that, is an exchange with XAI shares, or even a merger with XAI. And so the whole thing would be reconstructed. So that could be one solution of getting around it. But the point I want to make today, because at the moment it's just all speculation, is now that we're in Texas, many things are possible. They were not possible in Delaware, but now that we're in Texas, they are. They have a window to do things now. So we're actually having 2 different timelines. We're having the Delaware timeline, where we have to wait until the end of the year to know what's happening on the old package. And we're having a Texas timeline for new options that may not even be the ones that replace the old package, but just, because the old package remunerated him until 2023, actually. I mean, it was supposed to go until 2025, but he's not remunerated now, right? So there should be a second new package anyway, which is actually not the second one, because there was one before. This is the 2018 was his second package. This would be the third package. So that's one thing. Then we also have still an appeal ongoing on another case that we're going to talk about in a second anyway, which is while this whole tornado mess was happening, the Detroit firefighter and police retirement scheme, it's always those retirement pension schemes. They're coming from a very left political corner and are fighting for us. So they were shareholders since 2017. And they brought forward a law case in Delaware then in 2020 against the board executives, saying you are remunerated too much. And I have to say they have a point. I don't know whether you already want to move into the details of that, whether you're going to go there a little bit later. But anyway, they brought forward that case. That case got settled last year, the beginning of this year. And that case was settled by Chancellor McCormick, your preferred Halloween costume activist. And she only had to validate the settlement. The settlement was hashed out between the parties. But she also had to determine the attorney fees. So in that case, she allocated $176 million to the attorneys of the Detroit firefighter and police retirement scheme. And that one, just now, today, Wednesday, when we're taping this, Wednesday, 28th of May, just a Friday late before Memorial Day, Tesla's lawyer appealed. Not the settlement itself. The settlement is consumed, and we'll talk about the settlement in a second. But the attorney fees, the $176 million that she allocated to these law firms, they're appealing, saying it should be no more than $60 million. So that's our cases. And then we still have 2 cases pending in Delaware, and then we will finally be done. So in case you want to hear on those quickly, so there is. One case is the Cleveland Bakers and Teamsters Pension Fund. They were regrouped with another one that was the Employees Retirement System of Rhode Island. They both intervened when Elon was selling Tesla shares to purchase Twitter. He initially had 17% of Tesla shares. It went down to 13% because he used those 4% to buy Twitter, and the way he did that. So they have filed a lawsuit against that. And then there is another one called Perry, and he is going after potential insider trading between Elon and Kimball around an earnings call. I mean, again, I don't know all the details. So anyway, so those are the last cases still hanging around there.
Well, let's get these cases out the way so we don't have to worry about any stupid woke lawsuits.